Hi, Spire friends. It's Ben again here. Hope you're having a wonderful day. It is my great pleasure to introduce Katie Rietman to you. Katie has been playing principal cello for us for many years now. We think 2011, 2012, Messiah. And so, Katie, we're so grateful for you giving us some of your time today. Welcome.
Hi, Ben. It's always good to talk to you, even when it's a pandemic.
I it,
Especially when
it
it's a pandemic.
yeah, it's always good. So, Katie, tell our audience, how did you get started in music, and kind of where did you grow up, and just what really led you to this profession?
Well, it might be a little bit unconventional because, as opposed to many of my colleagues that went to Juilliard Prep or something like that, my best friend studied with Yo-Yo Ma's father when she was 3 in New York. I grew up in Amarillo, Texas, and I went to public school because everybody did.
Yeah.
And I started cello in 7th grade in public school orchestra at Amarillo High, actually at Crockett Junior High. I had played piano since the age of 3. I took piano. I took a little piano class when I was a kid. They were trying to sell you those Yamaha keyboards, so they had a little. So I could read music. I knew chordal harmony. I knew the names of chords. I knew rhythm and all that stuff when I was 3. And then I played piano. But then when I went to public school at the age of 13 to 7th grade, I said I want to play the cello. I want to play the violin. And the band director, who was a trumpet teacher that was also teaching orchestra, and maybe shouldn't have been, but he said, "Oh, people start the violin when they're really young, but you can play the bass. You're tall." Well, he needed a bass player. I took one look at a bass, and I couldn't even press a string down. I have kind of thin fingers, even for a cellist. I couldn't press a string down, so I said, "No, I'm not going to play that one. I want to play the violin." He said, "No, no, 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 no. You don't want to play the violin. How about the cello?" And I said, "Well, okay, I guess so." And so he gave me one, and I stuck with it. I played a lot of other stuff. I was in marching band. I played mallet percussion. I played the Star Spangled Banner piccolo solo.
Oh, fun.
I played oboe really, really badly, oboe and English horn. I played harpsichord a little bit, and a bunch of different stuff because I love music, and they let you just take all the music classes if you were if you wanted to. But luckily, Texas has great public school music programs, mainly because of the marching bands. They hire
Mhm.
good people and they put a lot of money into it because you have to have a good band to go to your 5A football
Mhm.
schools things. And as a result, they have good orchestras. So it's actually still probably the best public school orchestras in the country, a lot of them. So I was lucky to grow up in that, and that's how I started.
Cool. So you did that, and then how did you? I think our audience is so fascinated by those of you that devote most of your music making to the historical movement and an early specialist. So how did you really get into becoming an early music specialist on the cello? Can you tell us about that journey?
Absolutely. So, of course, I thought I was going to be a symphonic cellist because that's what everybody thinks when you're, especially when you grow up in an orchestra sort of group culture like Texas. Well, the best thing is you're going to get in one of the big orchestras. So I went off to conservatory, went to a few good conservatories, specifically Cincinnati, College Conservatory of Music, University of Cincinnati, and then I went to Cleveland Institute of Music, which is a really great school, one of the truly great ones. Of course, they have the Cleveland Orchestra, so
Yeah.
everybody there is super focused on getting in the Cleveland Orchestra. And I was thinking, yeah, that's what I'm going to try to do, and I was doing my master's degree, and however, about, I don't know, a few weeks into my master's degree, I became aware that there was a Baroque orchestra.
Mm.
And I signed up for it because I just thought it was fascinating. Also, Oberlin was a nearby school, and Oberlin had, at the time, it had probably one of the only 2 early music programs in the United States. Indiana University, I think, had one already, and Oberlin. Maybe there was another one, but it was very uncommon. Oberlin was a
Mhm.
big place for that. So that cellist, I had some lessons with the cellist that taught at Oberlin, Gambas and cellist, and I was like, oh, I really like this. This is really fun. And then I saw how hard it was to get in the Cleveland Orchestra, and then I played more and more Baroque. And then when I was um, almost 30, I guess I was 29, I had a ton of students, little kids. I was playing in all the regional orchestras, driving all over the place to Erie, Pennsylvania, and Canton and Akron, and playing in the
Mhm.
Cleveland Chamber Symphony, a lot of new music, which I was also interested in at that time. And I said, you know what? I'm not yet 30 and I don't have a real job. I just have these freelance jobs. I'm not married. I don't own property. I don't have any kids, and I've always wanted to live in Europe. So I'm going to go to Europe. So I just dropped all of that and basically moved to the Netherlands. So I have Vermeer here on my wall. I have a Vermeer just by chance. This is anyway. I loved
Yeah.
Amsterdam, and I went to the college. I went to the Spire Conservatory for 2 years there and did a specialty in Baroque cello. And I basically never came back for like 10 years. I lived in Germany after that. I worked in Portugal. I worked in France. I basically made this European career specializing in early music. I also just really love playing continuo, which is, as you probably all know, the bass line that supports everybody else. I also am a singer, and I speak a lot of languages. I speak 7 languages, 5 of them well, and I love accompanying vocal text
Mhm.
and singing. That is the thing I think is my greatest talent. I know when they're going to breathe. I can support them. I know what harmony they need. I feel like I'm like singer's friend and babysitter, kind of like when they break
Great.
down into tears. When a different director, not Ben Spalding, who was really really nice, makes them burst into tears before they go on the radio live to sing a solo cantata, I put them back. Say, "You're wonderful, honey. You're great.
Yeah.
Go out there.
Yeah.
It's fine."
Yeah.
And I smile
And
while
you just do
I
it.
give them their note. But anyway, I also never I did not love the way of playing of Baroque music and classical music. In fact, I thought I didn't like the Bach cello
Interesting.
suites, because I heard people play them in such a romantic way, and they were so boring, and they didn't sound right. Even
Mhm.
Mozart, I thought I didn't like Mozart because I did not like the way of playing it. So once I discovered that there was not only this other way of playing, but that there was all this other music. I mean, I had never heard a Rameau opera
Mhm.
or any Monteverdi or anything like that in before I got to the places where I did this, and I just thought it was amazing. It's like one of my good friends, it was a great oboist. He was almost got a job in the Met, and I said, I don't. I mean, Brahms is okay and everything, but Dido and Aeneas by Purcell, that really does it for me. And he was like, "That is so weird. I just have nothing to do with that music. All I really love is like Strauss and Wagner and
Yeah.
stuff." And I was like,
Yeah.
"Well, that's why you play the modern oboe and I play the Baroque cello." Anyway, I hope that answered the question a
Yeah,
little
no,
bit.
that's so. Did you have some specific mentors in kind of early music that really helped your career, or colleagues that really taught you a lot as you were growing in this historical movement? Some names maybe come to mind there.
Yes. So my first group was I sort of took piecemeal lessons at first. I took some lessons from various cellists around the country. I didn't have one teacher for the first year that I was playing in Cleveland, but I was in a group, including the Baroque Orchestra at Case Western Reserve, with Julie Andrzejewski, a very fine violinist and also Baroque dancer, Dan Ilyar, still my good colleague today, Mary Oleskovitz, who is now the world's authority on quants. We had a trio and a quartet, actually, and sometimes we did trios. And all of us have gone on to make pretty good careers in early music. It's really interesting. But, we would argue. We were super nerdy. We would be like, "I heard the overdotting in this recording, that Yapto Linden played." And the other person would say, "Well, that's not the correct overdotting. I mean, I've read in a treatise that you shouldn't do that." And I'm like, "But they did it on the record and it sounded really good." I was always the one that said, "Just make it sound good."
Yeah,
And my friends were like, "But I'm doing my doctorate on the
yeah,
overdotting."
yeah.
I'm like, "Yeah, but have you never heard the recording by these guys? Because they do it that way and it sounds really nice." So
That's
they were my colleagues that were really influential at that
yeah,
time.
that's great.
Teachers, I would say I had various lessons. The only person I had regular lessons with that I would consider my greatest teacher was Phoebe Carai, who now is the Baroque cello teacher at Juilliard, and she was just amazing. I only had lessons with her at a couple of summer festivals. I probably had
Mhm.
about 10 lessons total, but she was just so great, and her playing was so beautiful, and it was so, at the time she came from Cologne in Germany. She had been living there and playing with Reinhard Goebel, and she had this great style. It wasn't like, I mean, a lot of people play, it's kind of like,
Yeah.
you're just playing the continuo, you just have to put the notes down, and it has to be well intended rhythm. No, Phoebe's playing was like beautiful and shapely, and it gave a direction, and it was vocal almost, and still supportive. It was just so flexible and so much better than any Baroque cello playing I'd ever heard, and so I loved her. I later went to the Netherlands and studied with someone who will remain nameless, who is a well-known Baroque cellist who didn't help me at all. In fact, I nearly quit when I studied with him because he was super mean, and he made everybody cry, and he took their pieces away from them right before the exam, and subsequently, yeah, it wasn't a particularly good good match. But also all the people I learned from a lot were all the teachers there at the time. A great thing about the Netherlands and probably also England in those days, this will have been, I'm sorry to say, in the 90s, was there was a melting pot of all the nationalities. So I had very few Dutch colleagues. There were only 3 people in the early music program at the Selig. I had Finnish colleagues, Portuguese colleagues, Japanese, Mexican, Brazilian, Estonian colleagues, German, of course, French. Yeah, and that was really cool. A lot of Australians were there. So you also had all the different national styles. So you would have one person that was descended from the way that Jordi Sabal plays, and he was the concertmaster there, and he taught, in one school. And another would be strictly German, the way they play in Cologne, Reinhard Goebel, whatever, very, very different. They would have people that were from the English school. There were Italians. There were French people. I found it amazing that all of these styles were so very different. I even would postulate that people's styles come from the language that they speak. Like German is clipped and it's very rhythmic, and you say das war ich und das muss ich machen. But you don't say that in French. You say mais je vais faire. It's not strong, weak, but the Germans play that way. And the French, it's the rhythms are sort of swoopy. The Italians, it's like, you know how it is. It's Italian. And so it's really interesting. I really thought that the national styles came from the people's own languages. And also the music that was written in their countries. But even an Italian playing German music sounds pretty Italian. So that was what fascinated me, and that
is super fascinating.
That's cool.
So you have your cello with us today, and I thought it'd be interesting for our audience to hear. So you've been talking about how you developed this style in the historical movement. Can you show us a little bit about your cello first, and then maybe tell about what your role in the continuo is, and just how you approach things as a Baroque specialist that maybe a modern player doesn't necessarily think about. So you can talk a little bit about that. I think our audience would find that really helpful.
Sure. Totally. I'm going to have to show you the cello, so I'm going to have to move it, because the problem with cello and zoom is that you can't really turn the zoom sideways. So I end up with my students, I teach a lot of zoom lessons now. I have to be back this far.
That's fine,
That's also why I have this headset. And then that thing gets in the way. But, okay, so this cello is a historical cello. It is from 1790 in England. It's from London. The maker is Forster. Forster was a family of 3 generations that made cellos. They were very highly regarded. This is about 1790 was the time of my cello. In the Metropolitan Museum in New York, there is a gilded cello with all kinds of gold painting made for George II, one of the George Kings, a royally commissioned cello by Forster. The middle maker is mine, and he, I think, is supposedly the best one. Probably the best English cellos ever made. And I really love my cello. It has, like, my cello technically is classical period, because it's a little later. Like, there are Baroque cellos 100 years earlier than this that are large still. Some of them, they cut most of them down. It was, the instruments that were made to play bass were called a basse de violon, and that was a large format. There are a couple of Stradivarius still that are that big, but usually what they did was in the 19th century, they cut them so that soloists could play them, because let's talk about continuo playing. I won't bore you with the gut string and the lack of end pin and all that. But, okay, so in a lot of the history of the cello, I have to get my cord out of the way, so I'll just do that. The cello played in the first positions most of the time, like right here.
Okay.
Because they basically didn't play solo music that much until a new type of string was invented in the 1680s, which allowed them to make the instruments smaller. Otherwise, they would have been bigger than this. And they played the bass line, which means you're going to play stuff like... You're not going to be playing...
Yeah.
So you didn't need to move around a whole lot, because you had to stretch a bit, to play in a few keys. We can only play in about 3 keys without doing some funny stuff here. But then they figured out that... So before that, I will talk about the gut strings. The strings, you might be able to see them if I put them up really, really close. You can't really see. They look like spaghetti, uncooked spaghetti. They are made of gut. And these I think are sheep gut, but That's mainly what they were. And then, so they used to have really thick bottom strings, so that the C string was like really, really thick. So it sounded, first of all, really bad to have an unwound C and G. Some people still do it for Renaissance music. It doesn't sound too great, especially when you play up high. But in 1680, they figured out that they could take, I think it was in Bologna, they figured out they could take a flat piece of wire and wrap it around the string like this. Actually, it was a round piece of wire, and make it silver covered. And that means that they could change the tension so they could make instruments smaller. So all of a sudden, cellists could play stuff that went up and down because they didn't just have a huge instrument where they couldn't even get around.
Yeah.
So the instrument became smaller, and then it's when the solo repertoire started being invented. And so that is partly, the history of the cello. And as far as the way people play and why it's different, that might be of interest to people. Again, I can't play with my headset.
I know. That's okay.
Here, let me see if I can put it on this side. Oh yeah, that's much better. Oh no, that isn't. I have a cord in the way of my bow. Right, so a lot of the 19th century playing, which is beautiful and lovely, and we also don't play that music, by the way, in the way that they really did.
Yeah.
At that time, they still had strings like this. They didn't
Yeah.
have metal strings. But, so the bows were very, very different. And the Baroque bow was designed purposely. See this point here? That means that the tip of the bow is really light. It doesn't have much wood in it. So they were designed purposely so that a strong and a weak beat would be produced. So that you would have like... So you can do a lot of dotted rhythms. And even if you just go, it kind of did like strong and weak. And that's because they really wanted to imitate speech. The way that the bow developed over time, and then I'll play that piece in the way that a more modern player would play it, is that they added a lot of weight to the tip by making...
You can see that, yeah.
Yeah, so this is a modern bow, but the modern bow came in about 1800.
Yeah.
So actually the bow type I'm using is not quite the right one for this cello if I was playing the music from that time, if that makes any sense. This is a little bit later than 1800. So they made this really heavy, and the reason they did that was that they want you to be able to...
Yes.
To sustain the sound evenly so that it's like, because even opera in that time, they didn't sing every note the same. They sang strong and weak beats in the Baroque still. But this is designed so that up bow and down bow would sound exactly the same, whereas this bow is designed so that down bow is heavy and up bow is light, which patterns speech. I mean, we do not talk like this ever. We do not have all the syllables at the same and long, right?
Exactly.
And they also, the other thing that Baroque music is very influenced by is dance. Dance has dong, boom, strong, weak, weak. It doesn't have da 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 da. That doesn't sound dancey. So they really they used this. They didn't have, of course, anything. When they had a party, the dancers had a violinist to play for them. They didn't have recordings or anything else. So the dance master often played the violin. He would teach dance and play the violin. So the bows are also designed for that. If I were a modern player and I was playing what I just played, I probably would play. Except I would trill this way. Because they didn't do the trills the same way later on as they did.
Yeah.
So that's a lot more sustained, and people would say, well, that's so pretty, I like it.
Yeah.
I like it too, I just don't like it in the music like that, because it doesn't have as much character for me.
Yeah, I think that's. I think anybody that you know you can certainly hear the differences of the two examples you just did, and I think it's so important when our audience is watching you interact with the singers, then you're emulating that speech quality, the inflections of the text that they're doing as well, and that makes a synergy that is really pretty great when that all comes together. Yeah, so thanks for sharing that. So let's talk a little bit about what were some of your favorite Spire memories over the last couple years, and any particular things that you love about Kansas City.
Oh, okay. So Spire is the most fun gig of any gig, and we all love it. It is always super fun. It's amazing. You know, it could be 3 days before Christmas when everybody's had 1,000 messiahs and You know, they're tired. They really just want to go. Sometimes we get done on Christmas Eve. Still, you go to Spire, and there's all the top singers and players are there, always, from all over the country. Whoever, every time, it's like, wow, such and such is there. Oh my God, that's amazing. Because they want to go there because it is so fun. Even when there's a snowstorm, it's even
Yeah.
fun then. First of all, it's just lovely to work for Ben because Ben is really nice and good. He's good.
Yeah.
And he treats his musicians well. So we love to work for you.
Thank you.
And we love the people of Kansas City. We love to stay with the lovely, wonderful families. I've been very lucky. I've stayed with a lot of great people. But some of the time I've stayed with Ben's mom, which has
Yeah.
been super fun. And I get to stay where there's a lake out the window and drive out to the countryside and get mud on my car. It's just so lovely. And we all love it. Of course, as a Texas girl, I particularly love it because there's a lot of similarity between the panhandle of Texas, Oklahoma, and Kansas.
Yeah.
I also have my mom went to school in Atchison, and my mom is from Oklahoma. So I feel like, you know, I have a lot of cousins that are in those parts of the world as well. So I feel, I just feel it's fun to go there where it's probably, I was thinking about this the other day, like some people are like, oh, the Midwest, you know,
Yeah.
it's so conservative. It's like, you know what? The Midwest is where the people in the United States are the nicest, not the Deep South. Actually, the Deep South people are lovely, but
Yeah.
the Midwest is the place where everybody just seems friendly, happy, things are uncomplicated. And so we all love to stay with our host families and just, you know, see them. But we also love, another thing I should mention is that our colleagues that do live in Kansas City and the surrounding area, many of them who teach at the university, the singers, the players, we also love to see them. Some of them are people that we went to school with, you know, they went to Yale or somewhere else, and we don't see them very often anymore.
Yeah.
So we really like to see how their world is in Kansas. But favorite memories, the time there was a snowstorm and nobody could come. There were no sopranos
Yes.
because there was finally were some, but everybody got stuck because there was a massive snowstorm. One year that was the plague,
Yes.
where every singer was ill except I
Yes.
think one.
Yeah.
And they still did a good job, but it was
Yeah.
like the plague descended on us.
Yeah.
Let's see, I wrote down some of these. I remember Melanie Russell once and I and maybe Molly Quinn or somebody getting there. We were all New Yorkers and we were all, I mean, at the time we were all like stressed out, running around Wall Street and like, oh my God, we've got to be fabulous and we have to play in Lincoln Center. And we were all like, let's go to Macy's in Kansas City because it's empty.
It's empty.
A favorite memory was that Brown's Irish Market where we went. Is that what it's called? And
I
they
think
actually
so.
stayed open
Yes.
for us. And we had an after party there a couple of days before Christmas because we played at the church across
We
the
did.
street.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they were super nice. We said, we're going to bring you like 30 musicians who will eat and drink and buy stuff from your store. Will you stay open till like midnight? Absolutely. So they opened up. We went over there and everybody got their Christmas gifts. They bought like the Irish sweaters and it was so fun. We had such a lovely time there. What else? A time that we went to Kansas Public Radio in Lawrence, is that right? And I think
Yes.
we were recording Israel and Egypt live for the radio, and Ben gave a really nice speech. And then it's like, let's do this aria. And at that moment, the harpsichord couldn't
It
arrive
wasn't.
because
It
was
couldn't.
too
Yeah, it
much.
hadn't arrived, and yes,
And
you're
Ann,
right.
my colleague playing the bass, was the only one there because, like, was she there? There was
Yeah,
like one
I think
bass
so.
player there, and it was
Yeah.
me, or
Yeah.
two.
Yeah.
There was no continuo, and
Yeah.
everybody else was sick or something.
Yep. It was. Yeah.
And so I was like, here I am playing with a singer all by myself
All by
on
yourself,
the radio.
yes.
I'm the only bass group. That was fun. Let's see. Of course, the barbecue, but you know, Texans, we have our own opinion about the barbecue, so we can fight that out another time.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. The history of Kansas City. I went to the Jazz Hall of
wonderful.
Fame before I went to the Negro Baseball League thing. The first times I was there, I find it fascinating. It's like the railroad junction, the stockyards, all of that is just a part of. It has its own architecture and history. I love the downtown. Of course, we love the Kauffman Center. That's another thing.
Yeah.
Is who has a hall like that? I mean,
Yeah.
nobody.
Yeah.
You know, so that is just amazing. And but we also love all the little churches because they're all really pretty, and you get to talk to people more then, and
Yeah.
so we love all that. I think also, yeah, I had a British colleague that came one time. I wasn't there that time. I think it was Becky came to play the Matthew Passion,
Yeah,
and she
yeah.
thanked me afterwards for having recommended her. She said,
Oh.
you know, I have been living in the United States for well over 10 years. I'm not
Yeah.
sure how long she's been living in
Yeah.
Philly. And I have never been to any of the places like Kansas City or Omaha or...
Yeah.
She's like, I saw a part of America that I never seen
That's
before.
neat.
It was a totally different experience, and thank you
Yeah.
for letting me see that. So
Yeah.
that, those are
Yeah.
some of my favorite
That's
memories.
that's wonderful. And I think what you've alluded to is that a lot of times, we'll have a lot of musicians that are flying in from all over the place for these projects. But I think what we've been able to do over the years is create a community of people that really care for each other, and have a shared purpose and a shared goal. And I think that comes across in our music making, that we are really enjoy working with each other, and building a team of people, which, a lot of the same faces, for now, a long time, and that's
Hmm.
pretty great. And then to have such a supportive community in Kansas City that makes this all happen, we're very grateful for that.
Yeah, one is just always happy there. I mean, it's always a happy situation. And yes, most of the people will have been there. There'll be one or two new people each time,
Yeah,
but almost everybody comes back year after year. And okay, this year they had to do this thing they couldn't get out of, so
yeah,
somebody else
yeah,
is singing
yeah,
that, or there's a different person, which is great
yeah,
because there's a bit of
yeah,
change. But it's there are very few places where you really feel safe among your colleagues,
mm,
like when performing. You don't feel like somebody's out to get you. You don't feel like your job is on the line. We all feel that way constantly. But
yeah,
not in Kansas City. It's like it's just all happy and you can relax and really enjoy the music. Of course, I should also mention that our concertmaster is really extraordinary. Elizabeth
exactly.
Greenstock.
Yeah,
I couldn't ask for a better thing than to be able to play across from her and just learn from her.
yeah, yeah,
And a highlight of my playing year was her doing the Laudamus Te, being able to play with her and Nicole Holmer doing the Laudamus Te. I played that with a lot of violinists, and it was just bloody
yeah.
good.
It
Just really, really good.
it was, and
So,
I think a lot of us are very grateful that that was one of the last live performances that many of us did before this pandemic, and so having such a beautiful memory of that, is really special. I think that was our last time, for a while, but that'll make the next time we get together that much more special and that much more exciting. So we're looking forward to that. Well, Katie, thank you so much for taking the time to share about your life and your instrument and some of your favorite Spire memories with our audience. And we'll look forward to seeing you, hopefully soon when this is all over in Kansas City.
I hope so. I miss you guys.
Yeah,
Thank you, Ben. Thank you so
thank you.
much.